think it's a pretty decent group of O-linemen. Pass rushers, there are plenty. Although once you get past, a certain number, now you're trying to make sure whoever you take, you have a plan for them, because they may not be, obviously, the guys get all the tools coming to you.
Should add, he's the one-time broadcast partner of Jay Cutler.
Oh, there you go.
For a hot minute. I think that lasted 10 seconds. And Charles joins us right now on the Yuengling guest hotline. Yuengling is in Chicago. After 196 years, you can enjoy Yuengling traditional lager, light lager, golden pilsner, black and tan, and flight. CD, how you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you guys today?
We're doing well. So,
well, wait a second. I was going to say we're doing great because, as usual, as Bears fans, we always win the offseason.
Yes, that's right.
We've won another offseason.
Did you see
Charles.
our banner?
Hey, listen, banners are banners. I don't know why people don't put them up. I always, you guys see it a lot when, especially this time, March Madness, right? How many times have you seen in your lifetime those teams that get upset the year before, or they don't go as far as they expected, and the whole off season they wear T-shirts that say "unfinished business"?
Yeah.
Right. And then they get to the regionals. They win the regional. They're going to the Final Four, and they deliberately don't cut down the nets because we haven't finished our mission. I always say cut down the nets.
Yeah.
Enjoy the moment. Take each win, take each trophy as you go, and just keep adding to it. Because a lot of times, what happens? You go get beat in the next round,
right,
and you're like, we never really celebrated this year. You make everything into a failure when it's not. Now, obviously, the NFL, the only success is winning the Super Bowl, and everybody gets tired of winning the offseason. But to win the Super Bowl, you got to win the offseason too. So this is the starting point.
So where would your optimism level be for the Bears? Because I get it from both sides. And I flip-flop as a fan, CD, where sometimes I say I'm not believing until I see it on the field, and then I hear Ben Johnson speak. I'm like, this is a different animal.
And you're all in. And you're all in, right?
Exactly. So how do you think, after the offensive line improvements on the interior, Ben Johnson coming to town, 3 picks in the top 41, where would your optimism level be from a national guy looking in on our team?
Oh, I'd be bullish on the Bears. But we were bullish on the Bears last year, although I do think most people had enough to pump the brakes a little bit. Here's what happens is something like Hard Knocks can send you right down the road. The Lions the year before, but here's why I think most of us were able to pump the brakes a little. The Lions have been doing it for a couple of years, and that Hard Knocks year was really kind of like, this is kind of where it's supposed to be. This is why we can feel that type of optimism and get there. With the Bears, we were feeling all of that, but we didn't have it in front of us where the culture had been built to that point, where everything had built up to where we're like, all right, this is the next step time. But we saw the reasons why you would be excited, right? You bring in the rookie quarterback. You build around him with those excellent receivers. You think the offensive line is going to be good enough. You've got a runner in Swift. The defense had played really well the second half of the year. So you could see where you were, but I wasn't about to go totally down the road. I just knew that the optimism would jump up because if you have a good Hard Knocks and people grasp on, you have some good stories, people get with you. Look, the Lions the year before, you guys know when you went around different places, it didn't matter what team they were backing. Their second favorite team was the Lions. The Lions were the NFL's second favorite team everywhere after Hard Knocks, Big Dan, all the stories they had. I won't say it got quite that way with Chicago, but a lot of people liked it.
Yeah.
A lot of people liked the team. I think for this year, your optimism is bigger because you're kind of in on the head coach. But here's the one thing you always have to keep in mind. Haven't been a head coach yet. Mm-hmm. Head coaching is a whole different animal. The stuff that comes across your desk, both of you have been in it, and I'll ask you both very quickly. How many times have you talked to a new head coach and privately they've said, oh, my God, I had no idea what my days were going to be like.
Yeah. Definitely happens.
Right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You hear that all the time, just about what the meetings, even like with shaking hands with sponsors, pulling them out of some of these things with their team that they never envisioned happening.
I'm comforted, though, Charles, by the fact that they added Dennis Allen, who's got head coaching experience as their DC. And they've got a lot of guys on their roster, their coaching roster, that would be, that do have experience.
Smart move, right, Tom? Like, when you think about it, okay, pick whatever sport we have. Baseball, that bench coach, incredible, right? Valuable. It's always looking like some guy like Don Zimmer with, half a chaw in his mouth and, the whole deal whispering into the whiz kid's, ear and guiding him along. Go to basketball, right? Phil Jackson had his best success early because he had Tex Winter sitting next to him, who had seen it, done it 800 million times before Phil ever took over. Plus, Phil got some coaching experience in the old CBA. So those types of things are invaluable, but it is like drinking from a fire hydrant early for these coaches when they sit there and they're like, I'm watching tape. What do you guys need, Coach? Hey, we got to talk to you about this. And that coach had no idea what was going to come across his. I remember John Lynch told me as a GM, he said, when I first took over as a GM, I'm thinking GM, you're watching tape, you're talking to scouts, you're doing stuff. And I look down and there's a requisition for toilet paper on my desk that I need to sign.
That's amazing.
Those are the types of things that come at you and sap your time and sap what you really think your mission is.
Charles, to try to balance the optimism and also the realism with regard to this Bears team, it's kind of where I find myself, and I'd be interested in your take on this. They have fixed the interior of their offensive line. They have added some pieces to the defensive line. But I still look at those areas they need work still. And to pick a running back or a tight end would be a luxury pick that I don't think they're in the luxury stage. So with that as a backdrop, do you think that's an overreaction, or do you subscribe to the same theory that they could still get the most out of an offensive tackle or a pass rusher?
I'm much more in your camp on that one. Offensive tackle, pass rusher to me is a premium pick. The others, as you said, luxury, so to speak. Now, as you go down the board and you get to 10, depending on who gets plucked, I don't know that I would have a lot of I couldn't give them a lot of angst if all of a sudden you heard Tyler Warren or Colston Loveland come off the board.
Yeah.
Because as we get deeper into this, as you know, the Tyler Warren story is off the charts, and the highlight sizzle reel is crazy because of what? We're able to see him snap the ball and then catch a touchdown pass, right? That's crazy, okay? Loveland, because of injuries, other things, they didn't win a national title this year, didn't get it, but, boy, you pop on the tape, you're like, ooh. And there are people who are more in the Loveland camp than the Warren camp. Now, it's really 1 and 1A. I don't think people are like, oh, I just love this guy and that other guy's overrated. No one's saying that. Just some people like Loveland better. That tells you how good this tight end crop is. So to me, that would be, luxury pick. But sometimes if that falls the right way, you may have to go there and tell that young quarterback, this just keeps making you better, and you figure it out other places. Because I think it's a pretty decent group of O-linemen. Pass rushers, there are plenty. Although once you get past, a certain number, now you're trying to make sure whoever you take, you have a plan for them, because they may not be, obviously, the guys get all the tools coming to you.
Before we get to Jalen Walker, who you have mocked going to the Bears on NFL.com at 10, I teased to our audience that there's some bad news in your mock draft, and it's because 6, 7, 8, and 9 are the 4 guys that we probably are talking about the most in your mock draft here in Chicago. Ashton Genty getting a lot of love. Yep. As Waddle mentioned, Tyler Warren going 7 to the Jets. You have him. Mason Graham is the guy that our morning show is doing a prayer circle for. They want him to fall to number 10. And Will Campbell, of course, is that left tackle, plays left tackle. And we've not talked about arm length in this town like we have now. So of those 4, let me ask you, Charles, who do you think would be the best fit for the Bears if they slip to 10?
If they slip to 10, boy, I think I'd jump all over Will Campbell. I just do. I think that you've put great stock into the offensive line and free agency. You've worked on the defense, but the more you can help that young quarterback, the better.
You're
you
not
make
worried?
make that better. I'm not as worried about the arm length as others. I know that sometimes, look, I'm not as deep in the weeds as others as well. I just know this. Rashawn Slater doesn't have exactly the measurements you really want at a left tackle. It's working pretty well with the Chargers.
Mm-hmm.
You know, his footwork's elite and superior. I watched Campbell at the Combine. Obviously, you watch him on tape. I think he moves well. I'm not quite as worried about it, and we're really not talking about the idea that he's like 3 inches short on his arms, 2 inches short on his arms. A lot of people's like, you know, depending on the team, it's like a quarter to a half inch that they would like more of him. I'm not that worried about it. I really am not. I try not to get overly caught up in it. And look, I'll be the first to admit I've made plenty of mistakes on this before because I fell in love with this small safety at Wake Forest years ago. He ended up going in the second round and never really made a mark. Did I learn my lesson? Oh, no. I doubled down on Jason Verrett out of TCU, who would have been a really good player. And when he was healthy, he was a really good player. Problem was he was so little he couldn't stay healthy.
Yeah, it's interesting. As Silvy said, you have the Bears mocked. You have Jalen Walker going to the Bears at 10.
Yeah.
What can you tell us about Walker and why he would be a valuable player to add at 10?
He is a traits guy. You know how we talk about traits versus production, and it wasn't that long ago that the Jacksonville Jaguars took traits, right, and taking their guy. God, what the heck? Why am I blanking? Trayvon.
What was it? Trayvon Walker? Or what?
Trayvon Walker.
Yeah.
Taking him out of Georgia instead of Aiden Hutchinson out of Michigan, who the Bears couldn't wait to jump on and get. Well, obviously Hutchinson made the mark early and continues. And if he didn't get hurt last year, like he was headed toward, he was headed towards probably an All-Pro season, right? But quietly, Trayvon Walker has had double-digit sacks both years. I don't think either team has quote unquote suffered. We didn't see Walker do the same things in college, playing his style of defense. He held his edge more. He wasn't just released to go get the passer, not like Hutchinson was able to do. With Jalen Walker, you're seeing a little bit of that. You're also seeing, hey, he's had some injury over here. You didn't see all the big-time production. But, guys, I'm just going to tell you this. I have not cracked the code on college production versus going to the pros. You know why? Daniil Hunter came out of LSU with 4.5 career sacks. Career at LSU. I think that's worked out pretty well. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Chop Robinson came out of Penn State last year with 4.5 sacks his last year. Second half of last year, he was a monster. He was a heck of a player, right? So you can see what you were wanting to see. Odafe Owe with Baltimore coming out of Penn State. 0 sacks his senior year, still went in the first round. I can't quite grab all of that and say, well, this is where it goes. This year, fortunately for Penn State, Abdul Carter, 12.5 sacks, 23 pressures. You're not as worried about it. At least you've seen the numbers. But there have been a number of really good pass rushers in this league that came out of college that you can't find the numbers for them there. And I can't quite figure out that part. Sometimes the traits do blossom more. Better coaching, better scheme, who knows what it is.
Speaking of traits, you know, we're conditioned to think that Dennis Allen likes guys that are built a little differently than this young man is. 6'5", 265, the more rangy type of long athletic player. I believe this young man is 6'1" and 240, same size as Hassan Reddick, I think, exactly. Do you think that would bother the Bears, knowing that Allen has a track record and a resume that is pretty special with these types of players?
I would think so, because I think, and again, I'm not sitting there, so if Ryan Poles hears my voice, you understand this, Ryan Poles. I'm not in your meetings. I'm guessing a little bit, but it feels to me like Ryan Poles is the type of GM that is going to listen to his staff. He is going to listen to his coaches. All right, tell us what you're looking for. Is he going to be able to deliver that each and every? The answer is no. He's got his own ideas about it, and hey, you're getting paid to coach. I'm going to give you this guy. You take him and work with him. But I also don't think he just out of hand doesn't listen. Tell me what you like to do. Tell me what you like to see. Tell me what you're getting here. And, you know, Dennis Allen will be able to tell him chapter and verse why he likes certain people and why he does not, because he's had success with a certain player, as you've mentioned, in a certain style. Because when he's been a defensive coordinator, it's unassailable that he's been very good at that job. He's been very good at that job. His defenses have been excellent. So it'd be crazy for Ryan Poles not to listen to him and try and help deliver that.
Yeah, exactly. Charles, before we let you go, so you just got the number one booth in college football in a year after the legend Gary Danielson retires. So what does that mean to you?
Well, it means, number one, Gary is a legend. Like, there's no ifs, ands, or buts. This 2025 season, if this is his last lap, which it's announced that it is, all I care about is making sure that Gary has the best season possible. I don't exist at this point, in my mind, and I don't want to exist. I don't want to be anywhere around it. I don't want to be anywhere near it, because this is Gary's time. He's earned all of that, okay? And by the way, you guys know I'm not a specter, right? I'm not some unbelievable fit person coming in, taking the job. I'm fortunate to go there. And in fact, to me, it wouldn't be out of line if CBS named, the college football analyst chair the Gary Danielson chair, kind of like you endow a chair in college, where it's the, Tom Waddle head coaching position at, that university. To me, that would be right in line with what Gary Danielson has earned. So that's all I'm concerned about this year is making sure Gary Danielson has what he's supposed to have: the respect, the admiration, the cheers, the applause as he does this last lap through it, because, boy, has he earned it. And then when it's my turn, I'm going to bronze Gary Danielson's shoes. I'm going to put them in a trophy case and put soft light on them. and then just take my shoes and do what I can and hope to be, half the analyst Gary Danielson has been.
Yeah, and you will. You're great at what you do. We always appreciate your time, Charles. Thank you.
Thanks, Charles.
Yeah, I appreciate you guys. You take care of yourself.
There you go. Congrats, too. Charles Davis, CD, joining us. NFL Network, CBS, and then, as you heard, after Gary Danielson retires this year, he will move into the number one chair in college football.